Gonna be tough and require like some really athletic prowess, but
Okay, we'll make a start. There's a few others still on their way, but you know, time's ticking, so yeah, exactly. So tonight we're going to hear from Ben and Ryan, and so I'm just going to say hi and welcome. So welcome and hi. So, for me, I'll just tell you, some of you have heard this, I'll try and be quick. My mum, I grew up on essential oils. My mum had quite a few in this little wooden box. I remember her being scared of a few of them, didn't know quite what to do with them. I remember one, the cork would always burn out every year and she'd have to replace the cork. But I remember going to school with, if I was tired, she would put some lemon on my hanky that I could breathe, and so I had tea tree when I had a teenager with spots, in the sink and splash my face. I had quite a few experiences, and so when Ben came to see me, this was in probably like June, July time, 2014. I was open-minded to essential oils, and I tried quite a few different makes, and they spoke to me about the business side of things almost straight away, and because we were really good friends, I didn't say, oh no, I just want to know just about the products first, okay? Which lots of people, it's important to do that. So I was interested in the business, but I wanted to know if the products were as good as what they were saying that they were. Because at that point, I didn't know that there was a difference in essential oils. I just thought an essential oil is an essential oil. So me and Lisa, we bought our first kit, which was the family physician kit, okay? And we were looking out for opportunities, and Lisa got a really bad cold to begin with, so we thought, right, we'll use this as the test. So she didn't use it, and I did, and she really suffered, and she had to use other things buying from a chemist. We were doing a proper experiment, and she spent about £15 worth of things with paracetamol and that, and it just didn't, she really struggled still. And I just had the on guard, and for me, on that particular illness, I had about 5% of what she went through, and so that was our first experience, and we thought, wow, there's really something in this. And then we had more and more experiences, and so that's when we became on board. And so then me and Ben, because we kind of you joined a couple of months before me, didn't you? We didn't have any direction really, and we just Googled doTERRA and like thousands of millions of things. So we kind of spent time putting together things, and then we didn't really get far with that. And then it was only when we found out, because there's someone else in between Ben and Ryan and Danny, and so we didn't really know about you or get in touch with you then. But it's only when we kind of met Danny and Ryan and realised the support that was there, that we then decided, me and Lisa, we should do this as a business. We've got great support there. I had another business, and it's only been until really, I fitted solar panels, and I talked to you about it as I was doing it, but since Christmas I've decided to just do doTERRA. For me, I love, one of the main things was the integrity of the company, of all the executives. As with anything good, there's always, people say bad things, okay, with anything good. So I did my own research, and I felt my own conclusion that this is a fantastic company. The ethics, everything behind it, the way that they help the communities which farm these essential oils, many of them in third world countries. I was just so impressed, and so yeah, and that's pretty much it from what I wanted to share then. So I'm going to hand over to Ben. So Ben introduced me, and we also get great support from Ryan. I'm so grateful that Ryan comes over, or his wife, about every 3 months it's been, hasn't it? And to have that support. So thank you for coming here.
Thanks, Jonathan. So my name's Ben Stride. Like Jonathan said, I've kind of been involved in doTERRA for about 1.5 years. But for most of that time, I was at university, so I was really busy and didn't really have the opportunity to kind of jump into it the way that I wanted to with my wife, Jess. But fairly recently, over the last 4 or 5 months, we've been able to, and it's been fantastic. And so this is kind of something that I do full time now, if you can call it that. So it's great. So tonight we're going to have a couple of presentations. Obviously Ryan's flown in from Arizona on Monday. He's here with us for the whole week, kind of travelling around and doing some work with some of our teams. So it's great to have Ryan with us, and we'll hear from him a bit later. I don't want to take too much time, but I'm going to give a short presentation about doTERRA as a company, and just really, you know, I know that lots of you have already kind of been involved with doTERRA and know a lot, you know, about the company. But really my invitation is just to be open, you know, open to the things that you'll hear and see. And I came across this quote the other day, so I was thinking about this presentation by William Jennings Bryan, that says, "Destiny is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. It's not a thing to be waited for, it's a thing to be achieved." And I totally loved it. I thought, oh, that's great. And it's so true. We all have the same time. You know, our life's ours. We get to choose what we want to do with it. And so again, you know, I invite you to kind of be open to what's shared tonight. So doTERRA translates from the Latin to mean gift of the earth. And doTERRA obviously produce these high quality essential oils, such high quality that they're able to be used, you know, medicinally as natural medicines. My wife and I and our children have used these in our family, in our home, and had great results. I was just telling Ryan on the way down, one of my sons had tonsillitis this week, and we went to the doctor and he confirmed that it was. I could see in the back of his throat, you know, one tonsil was huge and the other was kind of normal. And sure enough, it was tonsillitis, and he prescribed some antibiotics, and they came back from the doctors, and I took one of the bottles of Melaleuca. I've got these kind of little drippy, you know, spout things. I lied him down and started to drip Melaleuca straight onto his tonsil. He was also gargling and drinking water with On Guard in it, and 3 days later his tonsil was completely, you know, down, and just seemed to have, you know, miraculous often results and really fast results. So they've been great in our lives. You know, we've had great experiences with them. So these are some of the oils. doTERRA currently doing 43 single oils, 20 blends. Why choose doTERRA? I'm sure lots of us are familiar with the CPTG, you know, certified pure therapeutic grade. We had some discussion this afternoon about, you know, exactly what that means. It basically represents a standard by which the oils are grown and harvested and distilled and tested to ensure that they're, you know, absolutely 100% pure and potent. This is the company headquarters down in Pleasant Grove, Utah. Jonathan and I had the pleasure of going and visiting the headquarters last September. It's fantastic. So they're the largest essential oil company now in the world. They have a huge science department. They have over 30 master's degree or PhD level scientists that work as part of their kind of staff. You know, on the development of products and on the kind of research of the oils, which is brilliant. The oils are sourced from all around the world. They're not grown in one particular place, but where they grow naturally, their natural habitat. So this is a few examples. We've got Australia, Oman, Madagascar, Haiti, Guatemala. They literally come from all around the world. So doTERRA is sourced from currently 40 countries, 23 of which are third world or developing countries, which is a huge proportion. And you can see this is a graph showing the amounts of oils that doTERRA has sourced, you know, from 2012 onward. And you can see that at the end of last year they sourced just over 1 million kilos of oil, which is a huge amount. And the projection for the end of next year, you know, is nearly double that. So you can see that they've got this huge operation going where the demand for these high-grade quality oils is kind of growing and growing and growing. And naturally, you know, kind of sharing this with people, the next question is, well, how are they ever going to sustain that? How are they ever going to, you know, continue to source this amount of oil, especially from, you know, third world countries? So there's two initiatives that doTERRA has set up that enable this to happen. The first is called co-impact sourcing, and when I talk about this I kind of relate it a little bit to fair trade, because some of the similar principles are involved, but it's much more comprehensive than fair trade, much more involved. But it ensures the supply, they control the quality, and they develop long-term partnerships. It's essentially that they pick small farmers and distillers, and they kind of group them into cooperatives so that they can benefit, as a kind of one entity. They're able to then pay them regularly and support them and their communities. They also have a charity called the Healing Hands Foundation, where distributors like us can donate money to this charity, and often large amounts of the money donated goes to supporting the communities in these third world countries where they source and grow the oils from. I've got a short video that kind of explains a bit more about the co-impact sourcing.
We knew that we would have to reach around the world at some point and tap into the global supply of essential oils, and we also assumed that we would need to increase that as well. The fact that we were able to do it with this co-impact sourcing model was just beautiful.
2/3 of the countries that we source our oils from are considered developing countries. And so we now have an opportunity to truly make a difference, to provide sustainable income for those people who are growing, harvesting, and distilling these beautiful oils for our benefit.
What we're doing through these initiatives are, first, job creation in rural areas where we can have a big impact. 2, working through long-term sourcing contracts and agreements with our partners. 3, helping the formation and organization of cooperatives, which share collective benefits among the harvesters and the growers themselves. 4th, fair and on-time payments, and even profit-sharing programs that the distillers offer to the growers and harvesters. 5th, through linking community-based and social impact projects funded through our Healing Hands Foundation.
For them to get the water, they had to walk at least an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, okay, back and forth. Today we can see that it's a special day because water has been flowing since midday today with the help of doTERRA, of course, and Healing Hands. Okay, we put a good team together, and that's how today everybody is happy. On either side, it's like a win-win-win situation.
Sometimes it's schools that they're in need of, sometimes it's water systems, sometimes it's medical clinics, medical supplies, whatever it might be. If you can change the lives of these people that have so little, that's how you can actually impact an economy. We have to have a very strong partner on the ground. They've got to have their heart and soul in it and wanting to help improve these people's lives. When we find someone like that, someone we can trust as a partner, that's who we try to really link up with.
Working with doTERRA on this project is because, of course, there are investment of people coming just to improve the reality. And the reality is here. At the beginning, it's not the manufacturing, filling vials, it's here. For me, it's more important to know the people. People is the key, okay? If you don't have a good people, it doesn't work.
We share the same values, the same philosophy. doTERRA's vision is to source sustainable oils and to create co-impact at the source to improve growers' livelihoods. So we are perfectly aligned in what we want to do. So that's why we signed an exclusive partnership with doTERRA on the aromatherapy business.
We are now working with more than 6,000 families in the cardamom sector, and the idea is to really improve the livelihoods of that families. I get the importance of getting back to my country and help the people in my country.
Oftentimes they think that their lives will always remain the same. And for someone to be able to really come in and be able to care about them and care about their family and to give them a sense of pride for the work that they do, to know that it matters, it's amazing to see the lights go on. And for them to truly have that pride in their heart to know that they're doing something good for the world. We are so committed to co-impact sourcing because this is a way we really see that we can make a difference in the world, in these countries that have no other means of help, have no other means of support.
Not only, of course, is meeting the needs where we're able to obtain the high quality essential oil that we must have, but also just the ability that it gives us to give back and to help so many people and to provide employment for so many people. That's been just downright magical.
I hope you can kind of get a feel and sense for the work that doTERRA are doing. I've literally never come across a company, you know, with this amount of kind of integrity and this kind of vision for the way in which they're kind of changing so many lives. You know, the medical centres, the schools, the water systems that they've been putting in all around the world is just incredible.
Would you say that was over and above fair trade?
Pardon?
Would you say that was over and above
Yeah.
the policies of fair trade?
Yeah, definitely.
Is there any reason, the only reason I was questioned last Friday, and I thought, oh, I'm going to have to learn to answer these questions, but they said, well, why haven't they got the fair trade logo if it's that good?
Why haven't they?
Yeah.
Because they've got the co-impact sourcing label, which is a completely different level to fair trade, so they don't kind of comply
But
with...
it's their own?
Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm not disputing that, but
Sure.
in the UK,
Yeah.
and in this was one who's run a natural health clinic for the last
Sure.
20 years, you know. It was going in there and dissing her products for starters, and
Right.
why haven't they got fair trade? Well,
Yeah.
it must be they can't be doing fair trade, you know. And I just compared some of the points that, with a previous conversation about fair trade,
Yeah.
having not looked into it in depth, and thought, oh, doesn't it, you know, why not doTERRA just apply for that because they're doing over and above?
Yeah, I guess it's... I don't know, I probably don't see any reason to...
It's
I
so
guess-
recognised in the UK.
Sure.
It's something that we, you know, anybody with any ethics buying would
Yeah.
be choosing something fair trade over,
Yeah.
you know, they might be going for organic and fair trade as
Yeah,
opposed to
Yeah.
something that wasn't.
We had a similar conversation earlier about, you know, organic and
It used to be.
Used to be, I don't think so.
CPTG. So I guess just, you know, I'd refer her back to do some research about what co-impact sourcing is, and she can make her own kind of judgment as to, you know, whether we're making a difference or not.
I'm someone who actually works in the sustainability industry. Fair trade is very recognised in the UK, but not outside the UK. It's a really big brand in the UK, but outside it's not. And also there's a big problem with the fact that you can buy fair trade certificates off unscrupulous
Eventually
certificates.
becomes corrupt.
Yeah,
Well,
from unscrupulous certification bodies are quite commonly traded, so there are problems with it recognised internationally.
I just say as well, the reason why these executives got together in the first place was because they recognised that there was a lot more that could be done in this industry, and that's why they made their own trademark CPTG and co-impact sourcing So, like what with Ben says, I would say if anyone asks any of these questions, is just refer them to go and study, and you could show them. You could give them a YouTube video or something which tells them what CPTG means, so that they can then go and compare it with others to see, do other companies do anything like this, and they don't. The same goes with fair trade. You could show them what co-impact sourcing actually means and what doTERRA actually does, and then they can go and compare that. But it is above and beyond, because they felt that to get the best, absolute best oils, then you'd have to go beyond just organic. There's more.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's the same with fair trade. They felt that more could be done with communities, because there's, like you said, there's ways around it anyway. So they wanted to ensure this is our standard, co-impact sourcing.
And the only thing we're hitting, being in Britain, I guess, is, and I guess I'll see it more because that was the first time, is that we're, and I started to question fair trade then, so that's where it took me.
Yeah, and I guess, like, sorry, I don't know your name.
Ben.
Matt.
Ben.
Ben, oh, I'm Ben.
Do you remember that one?
Like Ben said, fair trade is just kind of a standard that we recognise here, and doTERRA is a worldwide, company, so
Absolutely.
to kind of start subscribing to all the different standards in all the different markets would kind of be pointless when they've got their standard and they're kind of rolling that standard out worldwide. So these are the founders of doTERRA, these 7 people, and the reason I put this slide in is just to say and explain that when they came together to form doTERRA, they didn't go and kind of get loans from banks and get into loads of debt. They literally, put their houses on the line and raised the capital and formed the company. And I've met these individuals, and from the feeling that I get talking to them, they're fantastic people, and they're kind of fully united in their vision for bringing these oils into the world. So what makes doTERRA unique? We've talked about some of these. So they're the fastest growing company in the history of the industry. Largest essential oil company in the world. They have this really great product sharing model. I'm sure you've been to a class and seen how that works, how we share the oils. They're debt free with no outside interests or funding, so they've not got any shareholders, they've not got any plans to float the company on the stock exchange or anything like that. And they're led by this executive team that combined have over 150 years of experience. So really, really incredible individuals that have kind of come together, and strangely, lots of them people were kind of having similar thoughts and visions before they kind of found each other and were able to kind of collaborate and form doTERRA. So this is just an illustration of some of the company growth. So up here we've got $1 billion, down here we've got years. So it's taken 7 years for doTERRA to hit $1 billion mark. In comparison, it took Herbalife, we're here after 7 years, and it took them 16 to reach $1 billion. Apple, it took 7 years too, so they've grown for the first 7 years at the same rate that Apple have, which is quite impressive by any standard. So the US market, so the company was formed in 2008, so 8 years ago, and so the US market now is continuing to grow on that growth curve. They're kind of right up there, shooting skyward. But for us in Europe and in the UK market, we're following exactly the same trends so far, but we're just right down here, just about to hit that kind of curve, that explosive period of growth. So it's a really fantastic time, to be involved with doTERRA and to be on board. Really exciting. So that's it from me. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. I know you guys were already kind of understanding who doTERRA are and what they are. So I just want to introduce Ryan, who's a good friend and colleague of mine, guy that I have a lot of love and respect for. Like I said earlier, I've known him for about 1.5 years, and he continues to support Jess and I and Jonathan and all of our team here in the UK. And he's an incredible wealth of knowledge and experience. He's grown a fantastically successful business in America, and obviously he has kind of teams all around the world now. So Ryan. Thanks.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. Do we have is it the next slide, or I need to open the...
Oh, sorry, do you want me to...
deck? Yeah. Real quick, don't mind me, the man behind the curtains here. Okay. But I wanted to kind of express my thanks to Ben and to Jonathan, and it's kind of let you guys know that I have the most confidence in these guys, because I have been involved with them for a year and a half, and I've seen, I've got to know them, and you guys probably know this better than me, because you probably know them better than I do, right? But they're just really great people. And I have no doubt in my mind that both of them are going to be wildly successful in this company. And so I say that, you know, not to like, you know, puff them up or anything, but I say that to kind of give you guys a confidence that you're in a good place. You're connected to good people that have solid support, and if this is, you know, something that you choose to do, you're in a great place to do it. And so thank you guys, and know that they will definitely support you in a really powerful way. Now, tonight I want to share just a little bit about my story, because I'm really going to talk about tonight, you know, how you can make an income with doTERRA, right? Now, that might be exciting to some might not be quite as excited by that, but I want to tell you why it's exciting for me. And this picture right here is a good representation of that. This is my family. Okay, we've got 5 little ones right now. This was actually taken about a year ago, so I don't know if you can tell that I've aged an extra year here. But if you can imagine, all the kids have kind of got an extra year on them. We actually have number 6 due in end of April, so we're adding to this.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But let me tell you a little bit. I'll back up a little bit to kind of give you a little background. When our daughter Johanna, the older girl there, when she was just born, we had 4 children, 5 and under, and so they were all at home. They weren't quite, none of them were in school yet, and my wife and I kind of we kind of had some thoughts. We weren't completely satisfied with where kind of the life path we were on. For myself, I had a great, fantastic job. I provided very well for my family as a software engineer. But there was a piece I felt I was kind of missing out on a bit, and that was I'd get up early, get breakfast, get ready. Maybe the kids would be up by then. I'd say hi, you know, maybe we'd play a little bit, and then I'd head off to work. Right? My wife would stay home and raise our children, right? And I'd get home, you know, 6:30 maybe, depending on traffic. And we'd have dinner, and I'd spend some time with them, you know, read to them maybe or something at night. But I felt like I just kind of had this feeling that I was missing out on a lot in their lives. And, you know, I had these ideas. You know, I was talking with, I just totally spaced your name now. I want to say Ben, but I know there's too many Bens already here. It's Dan.
Yeah.
I knew it was a 3-letter one. Okay. I was talking with Dan just a little earlier that my boys like to play baseball. And that is one of the things that I'd always thought, oh, that'd be really cool. I'd love to coach my boys in baseball. You know, that'd be fun. They're just kind of getting started, kind of be just a good time to bond with them. But what I kind of recognized is the path I was on, that wasn't really in my future, because I'd get home too late. I'd get home and the sun was, you know, already starting to set. I didn't have time that I could coach them, and you know, that was just one of those things like, you know, that kind of stinks. And my wife, on the other hand, she's at home with all the kids, so you can imagine, with 4 young kids, she was completely overwhelmed. You know, a little tough. Especially if you've got this new baby, right? You've got these 3 crazy boys running around. She was totally overwhelmed, and so we had kind of been looking for a little bit, you know, something different in our lives. And right about this time, let me back up even a little bit farther in the story. Okay, so let's go back when Dallin, he's the guy over here, kind of catching bubbles, if you will. When he was younger, when he was about 2 years old or so, he had some respiratory issues and he had troubles breathing at times, especially in the colder months. He'd get this cough that sounded like a bark. It's like croup or something, something like that. And times where he'd wake up at night, he just couldn't breathe well, and we'd of course rush him off to the urgent care, and they'd give him a breathing treatment, steroids or something, and he'd get breathing a little better, and he'd do a little better, and then maybe a week or two later it'd kind of flare up again, and off we'd go back to the urgent care. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but they're like, well, sleep with him sitting up, that works really well, right? Or take him out into the cold air, and kind of that should maybe help a little bit. But we just kind of found ourselves like back and forth to the doctor's office with him, and eventually the doctors said, hey, look, it looks like your son probably has asthma, he's got all the symptoms for it, so what we're going to do, we're going to prescribe for you this nebulizing machine, this nebulizer, and we'll give you, a prescription for steroids, and just go ahead and get that filled. Whenever he's having trouble, just plug that thing in, turn it on, give him a dose. And we didn't really like that answer, that solution, right, that they had given us. And so we kind of started looking for, is there something that would be more healthy for him, something, a different alternative that we could do with our son. And so we asked my mother-in-law, some of you have met her in here, she's fantastic, and she's been very natural-minded. Sounds a lot like your mom. She's used essential oils for a really long time. But she never really shared with us, what they were, or how they worked, or anything like that. So we were always kind of like, we thought it was kind of strange, kind of weird, right? Just kind of off on the fringes. But at that time, we became a little bit more open, and we asked her, we said, Mom, what can we do with our son? Like, we really don't want to have to give him these steroid treatments all the time. And she said, well, hey, I've got this bottle, it says breathe on it. Like, I think this will be good for him, right? And I'm going to pass this around because I really love this blend. And you guys can kind of just take a smell. But so we started with breathe. We'd rub it on his chest and on his back each morning and night. And funny thing happened, he wasn't having these episodes all the time. Now I'm an engineer, like I mentioned, and so I'm a little bit of a skeptic. I want to see a little bit of evidence, and so I naturally kind of just said, well, he's probably getting better anyways. I'm sure it wasn't the oils, right? Those are kind of strange. But over time, as 1 week stretched into a month and then into several months, it became very apparent to my wife and I that there really is something powerful with essential oils. And of course that opened up to us kind of this whole world of essential oils. And we got a kit, and we got using them with our family, and really have had just fantastic experiences with the oils with our family. Okay? Now I will tell you that in the beginning we were completely closed to the kind of the business side of doTERRA. We loved the products. We used them with our kids. We used them with ourselves. But the network marketing, the multi-level marketing, MLM, that whole thing, we were always kind of like, oh no, we don't really want to do that. But we loved the products, and we were sharing with people like, hey, your son's got a breathing problem. I know what to give you. Sorry, I know what to give you. Here, take this bottle of Breathe. Try this. And we'd been sharing with people. So fast forward to this time where new baby and overwhelmed wife, and dad feeling like he's missing a little bit, and wondering if could there be a little bit more that we could have in our life? Could we be a little more satisfied with our lives? And we had a visit from our upline who lives in Utah. He came down to Arizona, and they just had reached the rank of diamond Okay, now that's a pretty significant rank. We'll kind of go over the ranks and stuff a little bit later. But he'd reached this rank of diamond, and we knew that what that meant. Like that was significant income. And when they came and we kind of met them, we chatted with them a bit, we were just super impressed. We were impressed by like how normal they were. Like, you know, we're kind of taken aback a little bit because you kind of have in your mind what a diamond would look like, right? You know, they have to be just this, you know, super salesman or something. You know, you have these preconceived notions of what they must be like to reach the rank of diamond, but they were just normal people. I think they had 6 kids at the time or something like that, all young, and they weren't like, I mean, awesome people, right? But you wouldn't just look at them and say like, oh yeah, I see why they're successful. You know, you've met people like that, I'm sure. But we were really taken aback that like, wow, they're just kind of normal mom and dad here, and look what they've achieved. And that experience kind of opened our eyes to the possibility that like, hey, you know, if they could do this, like, why can't we? Like, we're normal people too. Like, you know, we're not like backwards or anything. Like, I think we could probably do this too. And so we saw this as a chance to maybe make a difference in our lives. And so we decided, we said, why not? We'll give it a try. You know, there's nothing to lose, right? We'll give it a try and see how it works. And, you know, that was probably 5 years ago or so. Haven't looked back. It's been this fantastic journey for us. Of course, you know, we've had challenges and come up against roadblocks, and it's really been this learning experience along the way. But it truly has been a complete blessing to our family. Not only, you know, from the health side, the health benefits that we've received by trying to be a little bit more, you know, holistic and empowered with taking care of our own family's health, but also financially and just the experiences that we've been able to have. You know, it may sound silly to you guys, but, you know, an Arizona software developer, you know, on this path, but, you know, 2 days ago I'm in Cornwall eating Cornish pasties and, you know, experiences that they weren't in my trajectory, right? And so having chose kind of a different path, I now have just, I feel like personally I have this kind of wealth of experiences that are afforded to me through this opportunity. And so that's, to me, that's the important piece of, you know, if you were to choose to do this as a business, you know, sure, the money's great, right? But that's not the motivation. You can make money at, you know, tons of jobs, right? But this particular opportunity has allowed us to have just really fulfilling experiences, has allowed me to be at home with my kids. I work full time at home with my wife, and it's just been truly a blessing. And so I want to share with you guys, so that's the context I want to kind of use as we talk about the compensation plan. I don't want you to feel like, hey, you know, you guys all need to go get rich, like this, you know, like that's not what it's about, right? Money's just a tool. Money's a tool to be able to do things that have importance, that have value, okay? So let's kind of jump into this. To talk about the compensation plan, we're going to use the story of buckets and pipelines. Now, who in here is familiar with that story? Who's already kind of heard that before? There's a number of you, okay? So, real quickly, for those of you that haven't heard it, I'm just going to kind of recap. But basically, there's a man that he worked in his village to supply water, and that's how he made a living for his family. The way he did it, he would take his buckets and he'd walk to the water source that was pretty far away from the town. He'd fill up his buckets, carry them back to the town, you know, bottle the water and sell it, right? So that's kind of the way he provided for his family. And there was a younger man that was kind of watching this and thought, you know, hey, you know, there's a profession, there's something that I can do to kind of set myself up financially. And so he got his own buckets, you know, and he started off on this path and you know, began to make money selling water to the village. Now, as he did that, he kind of had this thought that, or he came to this realization that the days I don't feel like it, or maybe I sprained my ankle or something happens, I hurt my ankle on a trampoline, I don't know, but he couldn't go haul buckets, and if he didn't haul buckets, then he didn't get paid. Okay, and so he thought, I wonder if there's a better way. Is there something else I could do that would kind of change that for him? And so he had this idea. What would happen if I started creating this pipeline to the water source? Okay, so he still hauled his buckets, right? Because he needed to provide for himself. So he'd go haul his buckets when he was done with the minimum that he needed to do. Then he'd start working on his pipeline. And over time, he was able to complete this pipeline from the water source to the village. And then at that point, he no longer had to walk back and forth to the water source, but he merely had to just turn on the faucet and fill up the bottles. And so he had created not only this literal pipeline, but he also created this financial pipeline for him, where if he had to stay home at work, he could hire somebody to open the faucet for him and fill up bottles, right? And he could still be making an income for his family. So that's kind of the context of how we want to talk about the compensation plan. Maybe you would ask yourself the question, am I currently hauling buckets, or am I currently working on a pipeline? Where am I at? And it kind of gives you a little context to think about different opportunities that exist. Now, I do want to say, doTERRA is not the only opportunity. It's not the only way you can build a pipeline. There's many different ways. Whether it's through investing in the stock market or real estate, or maybe you have a company that you build and kind of have somebody that runs it, and you're kind of just over here as an owner. There's a lot of different ways. But I want to briefly talk about what makes doTERRA a particularly good choice as a pipeline. Okay? And one thing that's important for a pipeline is that once you build it, that it stays built, right? You don't want to always be out there having to replace sections of pipe because it keeps falling apart, right? That's one of the strengths with doTERRA. If you look at this little yellow bubble here that says 65%, what that represents is the retention rate in doTERRA. Or in other words, how many customers come back and reorder after they've made their initial orders. That rate, 65%, is well over 3 times the industry average. Okay, so what that means for us is, as we're working hard and we're doing all this work to invite people to classes and doing all these things, that it stays built. People love the products. They continue to reorder. So that's a really, really powerful number for us in this company. So, and Ben kind of already touched on a lot of other of the benefits of being involved with doTERRA, but I really love the opportunity we have to be connected to a company that has such high integrity and is such a good world citizen, and does the right thing, right? Not just tries to get the lowest prices at, however they can, but they're doing right to give back to the communities and help those communities prosper. So doTERRA as a pipeline, as a way to make an income, there's 5 different ways that you can do it. And we're going to go through each of those. They're not too confusing, it's pretty simple, but if at any point I start sounding like I'm talking gibberish, just raise your hand and say, hey, I'm a little lost here, you kind of got into your American lingo or something, I don't know. Just stop me, no worries, right? So the first way that you can make money with doTERRA is through retail sales. Now everybody understands this model, right? This is where you buy something at a lower price and you sell it at a higher price and you make the difference. Okay? We're not going to really spend time here because this is not where you'll make an income that's appreciable in doTERRA. Okay? But it is available to you if you were to be interested in that. If you were to classify retail sells as a bucket or a pipeline, which one would you choose? What would you think it is? What was it? A bucket, right? As much money as you want to make, that's how many sales you need to make, right? If you stop selling, you stop making money. So it's kind of pretty obviously a bucket there. Okay? So the next one is called the Fast Start Bonus. Okay, and before we talk about these other bonuses, I do want to mention that there is a minimum investment that you are required to make to be eligible to participate in the commissions in doTERRA. Now, even though there is an investment there, what I love about it is it's not like it's just a fee or a specific fee that you have to pay each month. You actually are ordering products that you're going to use for yourself and your family. Okay, which 9 out of 10 people in doTERRA, that's all they do. They're just customers. They don't build the business. Okay, so you get to be a customer, and as long as you have a qualifying order, which is 100 PV, which is just a product value, which equates to around 80 to 100 pounds, something like that, then you're eligible for commissions in doTERRA. Okay, and that never scales up, no matter how much money you start making. It's not like you start making a lot more money and they're like, oh, okay, hey, you need to make some bigger orders to keep. It's only ever 100 PV for anybody in the company. Okay, so that's kind of a cool thing. So let's talk about Fast Start real quick. What Fast Start is, it's a way that you get paid during the very first initial time period of when you bring somebody into the company. So for example, let's just take, let's make an example here. I introduced Dan to the company, and he gets excited, and he gets his wholesale membership, and he makes an order. During Dan's first 60 days as a member of doTERRA, I make 20% off of any orders he makes during that first 60-day period. Okay, that's pretty cool, right? Now, Dan's a little excited about the products, and he turns around and he introduces Jonathan to the company, and Jonathan sees the value. He gets his membership, and now Dan is going to make 20% off of any orders that Jonathan makes, right, for his first 60 days. Now, I will make 10% off of any of those orders that Jonathan makes for Jonathan's first 60 days, right? Okay, now, if you take that one step further, and let's say Jonathan enrolls Ben, then Jonathan will get the 20%, Dan will get 10%, I will get 5%. Okay, so it goes for those 3 levels. And that's what Fast Start is. Okay, you can do this as many times as you want, with as many different people as you want, forever, but you only get paid it for those first 60 days that they're a member in the company. Okay, does that kind of make sense? Yeah. Okay, so bucket or pipeline? Okay, bucket in the sense that, it's kind of temporary, right? It's not, you don't get paid that percentage forever, and it's dependent on you bringing people into the company, okay? But is it completely a bucket?
You're taking out some of the pipe.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an aspect of a pipeline, so it's really kind of a hybrid, right? Because you also are getting some commissions paid to you that aren't directly from your own work, right? So there's a little bit of that starting to happen, okay? And this is paid on a weekly basis. So each week, you get, when you enroll in doTERRA, in your back office, you have a little, I like to call it a little bank account. It's not really a bank, right? But they keep track of how much commissions you've earned, and when you've got a chunk in there that you're ready to use, you ring them up and they transfer it to your bank account, and there you go, right? So pretty simple. But that gets paid weekly. You can log into your back office every week and you can see, oh, what did I earn in Fast Starts? Okay, so that's kind of cool. The third way of making income with doTERRA is called the Power of 3 bonus. Now, the Power of 3 bonus is one that really incentivizes you to start building a team. doTERRA, as you can kind of see here, this kind of inverted tree structure, upside down tree, is you're at the top because you own your own business, right? And then your business is growing underneath you. Okay? If introduce 3 people that participate in the loyalty rewards program, that's that minimum requirement, right, that 100 PV. If you introduce 3 people that participate in that program and meet that minimum requirement, then you earn 35 pounds for that month, for each month that they continue to order on that program. Okay? So that's, 35 pounds, like that's nice. It's not too exciting, right? But if you then help those 3 people find their 3 people, so you've now gone down to a second level, you then get 175 pounds commission each month. That's a little more exciting. Now, do you know what I really like about that? What's your minimum investment in the company each month? It's around 100 pounds, right? So what does that mean with your company? You're in the black, right? You're profitable now. Is that the point where you tell your boss off and you walk out and you quit your job? No, probably not, right? Unless you've got a lot saved up to kind of keep it going forward. But you are in the black. You're now making more than you spend in a month. So that's a pretty exciting number. Bring that down one extra level, okay? If you help those 9 people find their 3 people each, right? That's this yellow level here. Then each month you earn 1,000 pounds. Now, who in here thinks that it would be nice to have an extra 1,000 pounds a month coming into your business? That'd be nice, right? You could probably figure out how to use that if you tried really hard, I imagine. Okay? So that's a little more exciting. Okay? What I like about this bonus is it incentivizes good behavior. And what I mean by that is it teaches you to start creating this structure in your organization, okay, and placing people under other people and kind of creating this healthy structure. And the reason why is because you want a pipeline that lasts. Okay? And if you have a healthy structure, it's going to be stable, and you're going to have, your pipeline will continue to work for you. And so I love that about this bonus. So let's go. Oh, I just gave it away. It's a pipeline, guys.
It's a pipeline, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Very quick. Okay.
Right, just one question. It says
Yeah.
minimum 600. I haven't got my specs on.
Oh yeah. I forgot to
600
mention that piece.
Oh yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
what that-
So what that is between you and your 3. I maybe simplified it a bit, so I apologize for that. Between you and your 3, you each have to have a minimum of your 100 PV. But between you and anybody on your front line, you have to have at least 600 PV, right? So it could be that all 4 of you, you and your 3 do 150 each, or it could be you each do 100 each, and you had, an additional 200 over here, somehow, right? But a total, it has to be 600.
As a minimum.
Okay, and that goes for, for you, that goes for this one, that goes for this one. Each one of those have that same kind of requirement. Okay, so good point. I totally forgot to bring that up. Appreciate that. Okay, very, very astute. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. This is where it gets kind of exciting. Okay, this one is called the Unilevel Organizational Bonus. Okay, take a look at kind of the colored bars here, and look on the left-hand side, and look at the percentages there. What can you tell about those percentages? What do you see happening with them?
They increase.
Yeah, they increase as you go down, okay? So each one of these bars kind of represents levels down underneath you. So you got your first level here, which you get 2%. So what that means is any orders that happen on that first level, you get 2% commission on that. Now who in here is like really excited about that 2%? It's not so exciting, right? Okay, you're glad it's there, but it's not super exciting. Okay, but as you notice, like you mentioned, as you go down on each level, it kind of starts to increase. Until you get down to the 7th level. I'm going to pour myself a cup of water, and I'm going to be done talking here in about 5 minutes. As you go down to the 7th level, you see it's 7%. Okay? Now, who in here can think why that's a really cool thing?
Because like you said, it encourages good behaviour.
Okay.
It encourages you to help those people underneath you to grow.
Totally, I love that about it. Okay, think of that picture where it kind of had like that upside down tree. Okay, think of the different levels. Think of the circles. The farther you get down, what's that going to look like? What's that tree going to look like? Gets bigger, right? Okay, you get paid the most where you're going to have the most people on your team. Okay, that's really cool. If that were just the opposite, you know, the big percentage was on the top, what would you be tempted to do? Let's say you brought in 10 people in the company. Where would you be tempted to place those people? Right on your front line. Why? Because you would be making 7% off of everything they order, right? Like, yeah, of course you would do that. Okay? Can anybody see a problem with that if you were to do that? Let's say you brought in 100 people.
You put them all on your front line.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
You wouldn't help them to grow their team because it's not in your interest.
Can you imagine trying to support 100 people? You know, by yourself? Right? You're the single person that has to support all of these people. It'd be a nightmare, right? And you wouldn't be able to do it in an effective way. And likely, you would lose a lot of those people, and probably, you know, doTERRA's retention rate would not be 65%. It'd be lower because, you know, people would get frustrated. You know, I ring Jonathan all the time. He never calls me back. Well, yeah, he's got 99 other people ringing him all the time. You know what I mean? Okay. So I love that. Not only is it generous, it pays you the most where you'll have the most, but it's also incentivizing good behavior. Okay. I'm not afraid to put somebody down underneath somebody because, hey, it works out for me too, right? You know, if somebody enrolled, if I enrolled somebody and they lived close by to somebody on my team that I already have there, well, it makes sense for me. I'm going to put them over there where they're geographically close to each other because they live in the same town maybe, and they can kind of work together as a team. It helps me, it helps them. They have multiple levels of support, and it's just this good behavior. Okay, so can everybody kind of see that? Okay, so let's look at kind of the numbers piece, because what you'll notice is in the beginning you're going to be working kind of on those upper levels, and those aren't super exciting percentages. So you might say, well, yeah, but you could make more money quicker had it been upside down, and you know, and you just be disciplined to do good behavior on your own, right? So let's compare. If you were to take, this is using this theoretical 3x3 structure that's like this perfect structure all the way down to the 7th level. I don't know how many people that ends up being. Maybe it says on here.
2,187.
Oh yeah, it does. There it is. So a lot of people, right, in your organization. Okay? And this is assuming they all make 150 PV a month ordered. Okay? So if they were to do that, on the gray scale over here, this is where it's flipped upside down with the high percentages at the top. You see, if you had your, you know, those 3 people, you'd make $31 off that first level. You compare that over here to doTERRA, it's only $9. And you think, you think, oh, well, yeah, it's better over there, right? What starts happening after you get down here, kind of 5th and 6th level, right? You know, right in here. Do you see the generous plan starts to overtake the other plan, right? If you compare the 7th level, now mind you, this is with exactly the same orders. You know, the same orders happened exactly. You're using apples to apples here. You would get paid $32,000. Now these are dollars, but whatever. It's just kind of an example, right? $32,000 compared to $12,000. Okay, so almost 3 times as much, just because those numbers are kind of flipped. So that's a really cool thing. That's really generous. I love that. I love that about doTERRA. It's what makes their compensation plan so powerful. Okay. Any questions on this? Does this kind of make sense to everybody? It's not too confusing, right?
Can I just say,
Yeah.
like 99.9% of other network marketing companies follow the method on the right. And when when I go to like a health or well-being fair, as well as talking to people who want to come and talk to Sand, I'll actually go and talk to some of the other fairs as well. And sometimes, if it's right, they'll want to really talk about. So they understand about all this because they're also in a network marketing. And when I talk to people and I ask them, everyone I've spoken to is always the method on the right. They get paid less.
Yeah.
And so.
I mean, you know why, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple different reasons. If you don't have the high retention rate, then you never really get down to these low levels. So, you know, it doesn't matter so much in those companies anyways, because you're always continually bringing people in and losing them out the back end. But also, if the company only has to pay out $12,000 for the same amount of volume compared to $32,000, the company makes more money, right?
What comes to my mind, Ryan, is the fact that with the videos that Ben has shared when it comes to what doTERRA is giving back to the villagers and helping out there, it's reflective throughout the whole of the organisation. You know, they're not trying to create something, a quick fix thing, you know, and that suddenly is there today and gone tomorrow. They want to, as you usually now do the pipeline, they want something for us to see that actually they're putting the marketing money into our pockets and they're investing in us, and they're trying to incentivise in that way and create unity and partnerships, which is exactly what they're doing to the villagers as well, and those things. So that's what came to my mind quite clearly. Yeah,
that's great. Thank you. I like that. So yeah, that's the unilevel. This is where okay, I'll just give it away on this. It's easy. Pipeline, right? This is where the main part of your pipeline will end up. Now, in the beginning, it's not so exciting right here. You're doing a lot of work because you're still bringing people in, but you're not making a whole lot through this bonus. Now, who remembers what bonus will help out in the beginning? It's kind of a fast bonus. Fast starts, right? Okay, that's one of the main reasons that fast starts exist in this plan, because the owners recognize that, hey, in the very beginning, like, you're not going to be making a ton, but you're going to be working a lot. So they kind of created this way that if you are working real, you know, and continuing to bring people in, you actually can make pretty significant money through the fast start. Okay, but with the eye towards building this solid pipeline. Okay, so that's kind of how those two fit together. It kind of fills in the gaps a bit at the top of, you know, where it may feel weak at the top of this. Yeah.
With the fast start, say you bring a new person in, but you put them underneath somewhere in your 5th level. Does that still count towards your fast start?
Yeah. So fast starts. Real quickly, there's two different terminologies with you know, your structure in your team. There's one that's called your sponsor, and that's literally just where you put them in your team. You know, if I put it under, you know, if I enrolled somebody and placed them under you, you would be the sponsor. Now, I would still be the enroller of that person. Okay, so there's a sponsor and an enroller. Fast starts follow the enroller. So it doesn't matter if I put them underneath you. The fast starts actually will skip you and go to me, and then, you know, and then my two uplines, right? Okay. Now, Power of 3 is strictly based on sponsorship, right? It's a structural bonus, so it makes sense that it follows the actual structure. Okay.
Yep.
Good question. Perfect. Okay. Any other questions? We carry on. All right. Let's talk about the last bonus, number 5. Okay. This is the leadership bonus pools. Now, an easy way to think of these it's kind of like profit sharing in a company. Okay? And basically what they do is they take out specific percentages of the volume and they divide that out and pay it out to the leadership ranks in doTERRA. So the very first leadership rank is silver. Okay, and as you look here, 2%, they take 2% of the company's volume and they divide that up, you know, as if you were to cut up a pie, right? And a silver gets 1 share, or 1 piece of that pie, they get 1 share. A gold gets 5 shares, and a platinum gets 10 shares. Okay, and you can kind of see the equivalent there. Those are in dollars, but the equivalent's about $150. This is each month. And that's just for being silver. You get that as kind of, you know, for being in a leadership rank, that's an extra bonus you get, right? you can see it kind of goes down, and gold gets, 5 times that, 750, and platinum gets 1,500, so around 1,000 pounds or so. Now, they also take an additional 1% of the company's volume, and they share that among the diamonds. Okay, a diamond gets 1 share, a blue diamond gets 2 shares, and a presidential diamond gets 3 shares. In addition to that, they take 3 separate pies of 1%, and they share that equally among the diamonds, and then a different one that's shared equally among the blue diamonds, and the other one that's shared equally among the presidential diamonds. Now you can see between those two, for the diamonds, for this 1% and this 1%, that equals out to be around $4,000. Okay, so I don't know, what's that, 2,800 or 3,000 pounds, somewhere in there, I don't know. Blue diamonds, it's from $9,000 to $12,000, and presidential diamonds, it's from $15,000 to $35,000. That's per month. Okay, does that sound pretty significant? That's pretty cool, right?
Massive, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty massive. Okay, this is on top of all of the other commissions. Okay, what good behavior do you think this incentivizes?
Not being competitive.
Are you really bothered if somebody else on somebody else's team is doing well in doTERRA?
No, because you benefit.
No, because you benefit, right? Like, I don't care. Like, I'm so happy for you. Somebody else on my team, I'm so happy that they're having success. Why? Because it helps the company. And I get to share kind of in that, as the company grows. I get to take a piece of that. So it incentivizes good behavior. In many companies, you'll have a lot of, kind of fierce competition between teams. You don't experience that as much in doTERRA. There's more of a collaborative feel. I know some of you in the room went to a boot camp that was held in Amsterdam. And it was, I don't know how many teams were represented there, but probably 10 to 15 completely separate teams, that didn't have, the same upline except maybe clear to the top, right? But they were all happy to go there and kind of mastermind and train each other and try to help each other be successful. Why? Because it makes sense, right? The compensation plan incentivizes that. Okay, and that's what I truly, truly love about doTERRA's compensation plan, is it incentivizes good behavior, it incentivizes ethical behavior, right? Okay, so that's the last of the different ways that you can make an income with doTERRA. Do all of those make sense to you? Were there any questions that you had on any of those? Pretty clear, right? Yeah. What I really love about it is, while I do understand it, I don't have to calculate any of it. doTERRA handles all that, right? You can go back and you can see, on your account, you can go see exactly where every pound comes from in your commission, if you want to. To me, I don't care so much. I'm glad they calculate it for me. I'm not an accountant. I'd get completely lost.
Right, one question that comes to mind. If someone was, not that it's not a question for me, I'm just thinking if I might be someone else. Yeah, if someone was sceptical about these figures, how do you go about saying, well, this is what they say, but where's the proof, or where does it come from? Why are they doing that, and that? What would be the response? I guess.
You're saying, do they really pay out like this says
is
they'll
that
pay out?
Just too good to be? Because people become sceptical. Like, if something sounds too good to be true, it's too good to be true. And like, that's a load of rubbish. I mean, I don't have that question. I'm just thinking, what can I do if someone? I'm sure that won't happen, but if it,
I'm sure it has happened.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You run into all kinds. I guess I would kind of try to understand what that individual, what they're really asking. Are they asking like, hey, are they being fair with how they calculate it out? Are you wanting to see kind of a report of where your commissions came from? Trying to find out what exactly they're, would kind of help them with that. But you certainly, I don't really share it with people, but I could certainly sit down with somebody and show them a report, you know, a monthly statement that I get in your back office. You get it, you can print it out if you want, or just kind of browse it. But it will show where every single, you know, it shows every order and how much commission was paid on it, and in which bonus. You know, it's got a full reporting of all of that. So yeah, you could certainly go through and do that exercise, but probably the person would kind of come to appreciate just the integrity of the company anyways.
Exactly, yeah.
Good. Ben?
Yeah, I was just going to say on that, as far as these figures go, so doTERRA are required to publish their annual average rank commissions and make that figures public. So these are real figures, they're not just kind of hypothetical, they are. So if someone was talking about, what, $35,000, like, it is a real figure that's been published, so it's kind of made up. As far as this kind of document goes.
Yeah, that's exactly right, good point, Ben.
So that's a monthly thing they...
I think they publish it on an annual basis. Like I mean, I'm sure the companies here in the UK have similar, you know, reporting requirements, but particularly this industry in the US, they have to publish what the average incomes of each ranks are. You can go and you can look it up for any network marketing company that's a US company, and you can see they have to publish it, you know, a public report, and you can go and see what the average incomes are, which is actually a pretty interesting comparison, because you will see that doTERRA's compensation plan is very generous. But yeah, you could certainly...
my questions though it has, but thank you,
Yeah, great question, thank you. Alright, so let's kind of talk a little bit about the different ranks in doTERRA. I omitted a few of them here kind of to the left. Basically they're just this number but a little bit lower, you know, as you go. The reason I started with this rank, the executive rank, and the next three, or the next two, are because these three ranks are what I like to call the building block ranks. And what I mean by that is, you can put together any other rank using just, you know, different combinations of these three, okay? And I think you'll see what I mean as we kind of get going. You're going to be like, okay, I get it, you know, kind of like beating a dead horse a bit. So the executive rank, the only requirement for that is that you have 2,000 OV. And what OV is, instead of PV, OV is your complete organization's volume. So all the orders in your team. Okay? Between all the orders in your team in that month, if you exceed 2,000 OV, then you are now in the executive rank in doTERRA. Pretty cool. You go on to elite. The only thing that changes, instead of 2,000 is 3,000. Okay, that's pretty simple. Okay, now the next rank is a little bit different. You see that it's kind of got these two legs on it, right? It also jumps up to 5,000, okay? But it has the requirement that you have two legs that are executive. Okay, so what does that mean? You have two legs that have at least 2,000 in each one. Okay, now total you need 5,000. So, you know, you could have 2,500, you could have 3,000, 2,000, or you could have 2,000, 2,000, and maybe a third leg that has 1,000 in it, right? Doesn't really matter where that extra 1,000 comes from, just somewhere in your team it needs to have the extra 1,000. Okay, and if you've met that requirement, you've got your two legs that have 2,000 in them each, and total you have 5,000, you're premier. Okay? Does that all kind of make sense? That's pretty simple, right?
What happens if you drop?
Okay, so what happens, let's say you're working really hard, and you just got to premier, just barely, right, 1 month. And then the next month, you know, you're still working hard, but you didn't quite get there. What happens? Okay, each month, you get paid for whatever rank you qualify for. Okay, each month. Okay, now you still are considered that rank, so if you hit premier, you'll be a premier from now until forever, but you only get paid for whatever rank you qualify for. Okay, if you continue to qualify for premier every month, you get paid as a premier every month. Okay, if the next month you're kind of, you know, trying to stabilize that premier and you're kind of trying to build that volume back up, you get paid maybe as an elite that month because you didn't quite make it. And that's pretty typical. That's actually very typical, that you'll hit a rank because you're really pushing for it, and then you'll kind of come down, and then, you know, maybe hit it again, and then, you know, there's this little kind of stabilizing time where you kind of maybe bounce between the two ranks a little bit, and eventually that becomes stable and you're pushing for the, you know, for the next higher rank. Does that answer your question? Okay. So let's go on, moving past Premier. The next rank, the one I mentioned that's the first leadership rank, is Silver. Now as you can see, it requires 3 elite legs. There's no OV requirement, but it's kind of implicit. You know, 3,000 in each elite leg, you're going to need at least 9,000 OV, right? These average incomes, these are the numbers that Ben was talking about that were published on, you know, each year they're published on the you know, the public report where they have to publish earnings, average earnings of each rank. Now, one thing to keep in mind with these averages, they are averages. Okay, and what do I mean by that? There's some that are higher and there's some that are lower. This is just the average. Okay? So the first time you hit silver, most likely you're not going to be at this average, right? You're going to be on the lower end. But as your team grows and grows and you're getting closer to gold, you may very well be on the higher end of that average. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. So that's the average. Alright. Can you see why Power of 3 is kind of a cool thing? Kind of why it has you kind of focus on 3 legs? Okay. The first few significant leadership ranks have a leg requirement of 3. Okay, so that's the same as Power of 3. So building towards one is helping you build towards the other. So it all kind of comes right in the process as you go. Okay, so that's good. The next rank is Gold. So basically you take those 3 legs that were elite and you help them and train them and get them each to Premier. Okay? If each of those 3 legs hits Premier in the month, then you are Gold. Okay? Take that to the next one. Any guesses what the next one will be? Let's see, there's Elite, then Premier, then what's the next one going to be? Platinums have 3 silvers. Okay? Are you kind of seeing how these kind of just build on each other? Okay, yeah. So Platinums have 3 silver legs. Okay, this is a pretty significant rank. Now the next one is the one that I said most people kind of focus on, and that's the Diamond rank. Now Diamond rank doesn't actually increase the rank, it adds another leg. Okay, so there's still those 3 silver legs that you had, but you now have a 4th silver leg requirement. Okay? The reason why this is such a significant rank is because by the time you hit Diamond, it's about the time that you're now starting to make an income where it's, you know, you could very well replace your income at the Diamond level. I mean, it's possible you could be replacing your income, you know, at a Platinum, maybe even a Gold, but definitely by Diamond, you know, that's the level that we kind of looked at and we said, okay, I've now surpassed my software engineering, you know, income. I'm ready, let's take the leap. I quit my job and we started working doTERRA full time. You know, I kind of joined my wife working doTERRA full time. So this is kind of a really, really fun rank. It's a really great goal to shoot for. Okay? So after Diamond comes Blue Diamond. Okay? It adds an additional leg. There's now 5 legs. And it kind of up-levels them all. They're all golds now instead of silvers. So that's kind of a bit of a jump. Okay, but you look at the average incomes, that's a bit of a jump also. Okay, remember these are monthly average incomes. You may look at that and think, monthly income, I don't know, that seems a little bit wild, or you know, maybe that's fabricated, maybe they're joking with that. These are actual averages. What that means is, I know Blue Diamonds that make much, much, much more than this, but you know, a new Blue Diamond makes less than this. That's the way it kind of works. Okay, the last rank in doTERRA is the Presidential Diamond. Okay, you add an additional leg, you've now got 6 legs, and you up-level everybody to Platinum. Okay, it's a pretty big undertaking. When I first started with doTERRA, I looked at this and I straight away just thought, there's no way. That's impossible. You know, even though I knew logically it's possible, I looked at it and I thought, there's no way I can get from here to there, right? Like, how in the world are you going to find these 6 leaders that are all platinums, you know, and it just seems completely undoable, right? Like you just can't manage that. And then to make it even worse, you look at the average income per month and you say, come on, that's not even if that is possible, there's no way I'm going to get there, right? You start battling kind of these self-doubts and fears that, you know, maybe it's just me, but I think a lot of people run up against. If you kind of feel that way, like I did in the beginning, what I would suggest that you do, find a rank that is believable for you, okay? Just focus on that rank for now. You know, you can just kind of put this on the back burner, okay? My wife and I are currently Blue Diamonds. This is our next rank. I can now look at this and say, yeah, I can kind of see how that's going to come together. We're going to get there, you know. But 2 or 3 years ago, I would have told you, I don't know how you ever get here. But you just take it one step at a time. It's a journey. One thing I always like to tell people is, if anybody's kind of, you know, made you feel like doTERRA is kind of like this, you know, this get rich quick type of thing, you're completely mistaken. Like, I would never want anybody to think that. This is like any other profession. If you want to achieve these type of results, it's going to take a lot of work. You know, you wouldn't expect to get paid like a doctor unless you studied like a doctor, right? You would never expect that. You can't expect to get paid like a presidential diamond unless you do the work that it takes to be a presidential diamond. Okay, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. But I will tell you that you can reach whatever level you really want to in this business. And really the only limiting factor is you. You know, you get to decide. And that's kind of how I want to wrap up tonight. You know, and is the only question that really matters is, you know, what do you want from doTERRA? Because I can tell you what some of my goals are, and you know what I wanted to do. You know, it was one of our goals that I could quit my full-time job and come home and help my wife kind of raise our kids and all that. And somebody might be sitting there thinking like, oh, I can't think of anything worse. I would never want to, you know, come home and help raise the kids during the day. Like great. You know, what do you want from doTERRA? You know, Dan kind of shared with me some ideas he had about what his kind of ideal would be of what he could do, you know, when he's getting to these levels. And it's like, wow, that's completely awesome. You know, ways that he could give back to the community and just do some outstanding things. Each one of you has to decide, you know, what is it that you want to do? Somebody might tell me, you know what I want to do with doTERRA? I want to take care of my family's health. I want to live a healthier life. That's awesome. You know, I honor them for that. I think that's great. Okay, someone else might say, you know, I would really love to get my oils paid for. Because, you know, I can't see myself spending $100 each month, but if I could get those paid for, I would just love to have them in our home. Like, oh, that's great. You know, I'd love to show you how you can do that. Someone else might tell me, I really want to replace my income with doTERRA. Say, awesome. Work with me and I'll show you how you can do that. Okay, but until somebody decides what they want to do with doTERRA, it really doesn't matter, right? Like, it's a decision everybody has to make. Now, when somebody does decide that they want to make an income with doTERRA, how do they get started? You know, we talked about a whole lot of things. It may seem a bit overwhelming. You know, how do you get to diamond or presidential diamond when I'm just barely starting out? You schedule your first class. That's how you get started. Okay, talk to the person that introduced you to doTERRA and say, I want to get started. Let's schedule my class. I'm ready to go. And then you just take it one step at a time, and you'll go on this journey, and your belief in yourself, and your belief in the company, and your belief in your own possibilities will begin to kind of open up in front of you as you put in the work and the time. And so that's kind of what I want to leave you guys with tonight is whatever you want to accomplish with doTERRA, it's there for you, but there's no one that's going to do it for you. Okay, it's your decision that you have to make. You have to decide, you know, do I want to put the time in to build this pipeline, or do I want to haul my buckets and come home and, you know, watch the telly when I get home? You know, what do I want to do? What am I willing to sacrifice? Because it will take a bit of a sacrifice, because you all have to provide for yourselves at the time, right? And you're going to end up building doTERRA kind of on the side until it gets to a point where you can support yourself, and then you can maybe take the jump and do it full time if that's something that appeals to you. If it's not, that's great. But it's something you got to decide on. Okay, so I invite each one of you to put some thought into it. Think about it. You know, talk to your spouse or a loved one, and you know, kind of bounce things off them. Like, what is it? Like, what would you want to do? Where could we go with this? What are the possibilities? And decide and commit to it. If you'll commit to the process in doTERRA and just follow the process and commit to it, it's available to anybody. But I know not everybody will do it. Okay, but it truly is available to anybody. Okay, and I'm seeing it in front of my eyes with, you know, with Jonathan and with Ben as they're building this. You know, maybe the first time we came over to the UK, you get the question like, well, you know, that works in the US, but does that really work here in the UK? You know, we're kind of maybe a little more skeptic than the US, you know. You get all these kind of questions, but I can watch it happen. You know, it's happening. And not just on our team. There's other teams in the area that it's happening. It's growing. And so, yeah, I can tell you, yeah, it works here, but you have to work here. You know, you have to do it. Okay? So that's my invitation to you tonight. Decide what you want with doTERRA, and then go for it. Don't let anybody put you down, but know that you also have this fabulous support between Jonathan, Ben, myself, even our uplines. We're all committed to each one of your success. So, with that, are there any questions that you have for me? I'm happy to take any questions. I don't always know the answers, but I can point to Jonathan when I don't. He does.
So how many people, if you don't mind, how many people are on your team? And how many of those did you personally enroll?
Personally enroll? So, I don't have the exact number, but it's somewhere in the realm of 10,000 people in our team. Personal enrollments, probably around 50 to 70, somewhere in that range. I mean, I don't know the exact number, but it's not like hundreds.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're really looking for builders. You're looking for people that are going to join with you. And so, you know, you're going to enroll a lot of customers, but you're also going to enroll those key people that are going to join with you and build a business. So, don't want that number to kind of scare people off. I don't know 10,000 people probably even. but I mean, that's why it's network marketing, right? I only have to know a few that know a few that know a few, and pretty soon it's this massive, massive thing.
I guess for me, it's not a question, it's just replying back with what the question was in your answer. It's kind of reassuring that I only have to find 10,000 or 20,000 individuals, because when it comes to business, having been in business my whole life, and even though I'm still young, the cool thing is the effect, cause and effect. To do something, you need to have a result, you need to do something.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen if you're sitting there just looking all pretty and, as we said earlier on today, you know, labelling your jars or whatever, oil and
putting them in alphabetical order.
Yeah, all right, is that all? That's just what's it called? Anyway, yeah, that's distraction. You know, the key is the connecting with the individual. It's the message you shared. So for me, it's just reassuring that it's not as scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right. Well, I once again I'm grateful that you guys took some time out of your days to come here and listen to Ben, Jonathan, and myself, and if you do want to get started, we're super happy to help you get started and kind of train you along the way. So thank you for coming, and like I said, we're happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you. All right.
Good times.
Yeah.
Actually, one question that comes to my mind, even though we're just glad to know,
is
how many classes do you and your wife do a month, would you say? Has that decreased significantly now?
Yeah, definitely.
I guess. 'Cause
Yeah, so in the beginning, is it okay if we kind of, feel free if, you know, if you got somewhere to go. Look,
yeah,
I'm just happy to answer questions. I'll stay here till late, right? It's early for me. But yeah, so if you think of the activities that you do to build a successful business in doTERRA, and in the beginning, you know, finding and teaching classes is going to be like kind of this major portion, right? Because you're kind of starting with nothing, right? So you're trying to find people and run a lot of classes and kind of get that going. As your team grows, that percentage starts to, you know, to shift down, and down here starts to be kind of this training piece, this mentoring, teaching your leaders to, you know, teaching them the things that you've learned along the way. Now, it will never go to zero, or your business will start to stagnate, but it will close down. So how many classes do we run in a typical month? Sometimes one. We don't run a lot of classes anymore. That's not to say we don't enroll people. We just brought on a gal that she's a rock star. In the first 2 or 3 months, she's gotten to Premier already, and it was the girl that did my wife's eyelashes. You know, so she goes there, and of course, you know, they're chatting away, and oh, what do you do, and what do you do, you know, and yeah, so we've now enrolled her on our team, and she's really going gung-ho in the business. So we continually are doing that, but it's not like the major portion of our activities, right? We spend a lot of time with mentoring and you know, kind of making sure our team's needs are met and, you know, that type of thing.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely, yeah.
I'm right. I've used essential oils all my life, so it wasn't
Fantastic.
difficult. I smelt the oils, and I bought. That was,
Yeah.
there was not a,
That was it.
And these are really, really good quality
Uh-huh.
materials, so I don't have a problem with that
Sure.
at all. I'm not a salesperson, so
Good.
I have a real problem.
Who here likes a
Yeah.
salesperson, right?
Oh, I don't
Good,
know.
you have a chance in this business.
My real pull at the moment is that my husband's a diabetic,
Mhm.
and my dream would be for him to reduce his medication to 0.
Okay.
So I'm very keen to make contact with people who've had any kind of experience using cinnamon to treat
Yeah, yeah.
diabetes. That's
I know there
Put me
are
in
loads
touch.
of people that have. I don't have any personal experience with diabetes. Trying to think what would be a good way for you. Is it type 1, type 2?
type 2.
Type 2. I know there's some gals on our team that, you know, they have some children with type 1. That's kind of the one from birth, is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah, they have that, but I know there's loads of people that have been able, I don't know if they've been able to completely get rid of all their medication, but they've certainly been able to lessen it and be able to kind of balance things out a bit to where it's not like these high swings where it's just,
That's
you know,
right.
back and forth. Yeah, I wish I could be a little bit more help. I don't have any like personal experience to say, yeah, you know, try out the balance and, you know, cinnamon and coriander or whatever, you know, I don't quite know. What I'd probably do, a good place to start, and I imagine you've probably already done this, but, you know, open the book and kind of read up on diabetes and some of the oils and which ones you can kind of use. But more than that, I probably can't give you anything too useful.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I think there's references as well, other studies in the book.
There
Oh,
are,
yeah, yeah.
yes, and they're
Okay.
based on mice and rats and people, so I need
Yeah,
to go
yeah,
and research those as
Yeah.
well. I just
Yeah,
wondered
definitely.
There'll be lots of people who have had lots of experiences, and so I find it helpful by going to events like
Mhm.
this, but other bigger events as well, where I've met people whose children have ADHD or other things, and you hear their experience and what they've used, and so if you come to events, you'll meet other people and network, but also lots of people do publish it on social media.
I'm just going to have to get through it.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I will tell you this, you know, because doTERRA wants to be a company that will be around for decades, they have a very keen interest in complying with any of the regulatory bodies, you know, not only in the US, but in, you know, in each of the countries. You know, and they don't usually have to address that in a country until the market's kind of hit a certain level where they're kind of on that country's radar, and then it's kind of like, okay, we need to make sure. So in the U.S. over the past year, there's been quite a bit of scrutiny, not just on doTERRA, but on the industry in general, with essential oils from the FDA, which is our regulatory body. And so doTERRA kind of preemptively has really, really made an effort to get rid of any claims on the internet. You know, they spend massive amounts of hours, they're calling people up like, hey, we noticed you have this website, actually please take it down, or get rid of these things, you can't make these types of claims. So it's really, really good in one sense, because it gives you kind of that comforting feeling that, yeah, they're really looking out for us. You don't want to build this pipeline to then have a regulatory body bring an axe and just chop it down, right? And so that's good that they're doing that, but the difficulty of that is it has become quite a bit more difficult over the past year to just go on and Google doTERRA and diabetes, because you're not going to come up with much. What you'll come up with is kind of what never came up in the search results before. Maybe some of the detractors or whatever, like that's what ends up bubbling up to the top. But I completely agree with what Jonathan said. Not only networking for business, right? Start networking and asking people, because I guarantee you're going to find people that have had good success, and I'll bet you there's a bunch of them right here in the UK. Going to some of the larger events and just kind of, yeah, have you heard anybody had success with diabetes? What did you do? What was your experience? And that way can be very powerful. And I wish it could be different. You kind of have your cake and eat it too, type of thing. But
not if you've got diabetes.
Yeah, sugar-free cake.
To add to that as well, keep your eye on doTERRA Science blog. So doTERRA is, what I really like is the science, the amount of scientific studies which are happening now are just going through the roof, okay? And they put, it only started, 6 months ago, 5 months ago, this particular blog, but it's got all modern, relevant scientific studies. At some point, all the time we're seeing new studies go onto this weekly. So at some point there might be a proper scientific study done for diabetes.
Yeah,
I do know
it's clearly an issue that many people face.
I know I've got 2 friends, and it probably won't help. I don't know.
It's got more than that.
Yeah.
You've got 2. One's Jonathan.
You're a new friend.
Okay.
You're a new friend. But my granddad and one of my other dear friends from previous job, they both have diabetes, and the only way they can control it, my grandfather, he's ex-army and that, and he's 90, yeah, and he's regimented in his diet. He's incredibly strict. He will not touch certain things. So I guess you've got to, as someone who doesn't know anything, a little bit, but is to maybe go at 2 angles: diet as well as the things what it says in the essential oil. Well, I know that's stuff you would have thought anyway, but I know that my grandpa and also my other friend, they have to be incredibly strict and just discover for themselves what they can and can't do. But yeah, I don't know any private things.
It's not set the system, the national health system isn't set up.
No, it's tough. Yeah.
Neither is the U.S.
The
medical
hardest
system.
thing to get are the
Traditional
test
medicine doesn't
strips.
treat the whole.
And that's what you need to be able to monitor what you're doing.
Yeah. Take care. Good to see you.
Hey, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Nice to meet you. Great questions, guys. Anything else? I'm sorry?
Is the science book the only one? I thought there was a couple. They're not.
That's doTERRA's one, but there's loads. If you go to PubMed,
So doTERRA's just got that one, is it? Officially.
That's all I've
I
seen.
mean, they have other blogs, but I think they're trying to use that one as a specific place to put some of the studies and kind of the science pieces.
I thought there was like a Q&A thing on their website or something.
There is that as well. So they've got quite a few websites, they tell me.
Yeah.
But that's one specifically for scientific studies.
The essential oils.
It's like, for instance, right over here in the UK, right? The UK aromatherapy is don't take them internally. But when you see these studies, which aren't done by doTERRA, they're third-party studies, modern ones. When you look at the the reasons why in the UK traditionally why we don't take them internally, that came about years and years ago when the standard of essential oil, for one thing, was nowhere near what it is now with doTERRA. But I almost, in a really respectful way, want to tell people, if they come up against this obstacle, is just look at some more, just if you want to look at some more modern research, it is here. I just saw one the other day on the doTERRA science blog, an independent study in Japan found that lavender taken internally, and again, we would only encourage people to look into doing that with doTERRA because of the guaranteed purity. It does amazing things for the immune system. And they're not sure exactly how it does it yet, but it's the start of a whole new scientific study that they're going down. And so we'll see loads of things with that, with lavender in the future.
There's another study, they were doing something about memory. They had one control group with something being diffused in the air.
The rosemary?
That's it, yeah. I think it was on the BBC website I saw it.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And it showed, and that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it really is an exciting time for, I mean, the pendulum has totally began to swing, you know, where we swung so far to the traditional kind of, you know, medicine, and now it's swinging back, and you see that, you know, with all the organic foods that are available, and, you know, the health food stores, and just this whole movement of people trying to be more conscious of their health and take more control of it. And so if you're building a business and you're in this climate where the masses are moving toward being more naturally minded, like, it's like the perfect storm, right? Like, people are already looking for that. I mean, that's what got us into it. We're looking, was there something more natural that we could do that wouldn't be so, you know, kind of caustic on our sun? It was like, that's what led us to this. And that, most people are looking to that, not everybody, but the trend is toward natural right now, and that's awesome. That's huge for your business.
I think the thing for me, which is quite interesting, who's coming into it from a skeptical hat at first, and now I've been sold on it, is the fact that as human beings, we kind of connect with plants and things around us, and our senses, we pick up those smells, and it does something chemically. It's something that we're a part of, and you hear about documentaries of Aborigines, the people in Amazon, all sorts of people, you know, who have these traditional things that help to remedy issues and that. But for me, like the 65% of people retention rate is because as humans we connect and we know it's good for us. It smells good, you know. It's our senses, and we just kind of feel. It's different from smelling paracetamol or something.
Have you smelled that before?
No.
You've tasted it though.
Paracetamol without any sugar coating. Wow.
I want to ask a question about this slide here. How did you get started? Okay, so my family weren't interested. My wife's family were definitely not interested. Okay, and that was like a year and a half ago. One of my sisters, for the first time, last week bought her first oil, just one. Okay, and they're getting there. Okay, so what I would say is, how do you get started? And also, over, you know, I don't know if it's just over here, but we might be feeling. I didn't want, for my friends, for example, I didn't want people to think, oh no, here comes Jonathan again. Yeah, he's mentioning the D word, the doTERRA word.
Yeah.
So, if you're feeling that worry about maybe losing friends or whatever, what would you say?
I would say
to
don't
get
be
started?
that friend. That was one of our main kind of concerns. You know, I told you we had this year and a half time period, 2 years where we didn't really do the business. We didn't want to be the person that, you know, walked into the family reunion and everybody, you know what I mean? Then like they saw you coming into into your church or whatever, and everybody's like, oh, here you go. You know, we did not want to be those people. But what we realized is it's totally just a choice. Like, we don't have to build our business like that. Somebody maybe did, and maybe that's why we had thought, like, this preconception of, like, if you were going to do network marketing, you were going to be this kind of person that just, you know, pounced on people. And so we've never built our business that way. You know, not all my family is in doTERRA. You know, they certainly know I am, and I've certainly shared things with them. But if they don't want to, like, I don't have a problem with that. Like, that's nothing for me, you know. But I'll share with people if they're not interested. Like okay, great. I'm not going to be the person that, you know, that makes it awkward, right? For me, it's fine. Like, that's great.
So if you wanted to schedule loads of classes, you're ready to go, you want to schedule loads of classes, but with you knew that your friends and your family needed warming. Do you know what I mean? They needed to see that you're not just doing it for a quick fad. And they're like, oh, a year later they're still doing it. Oh, actually, and
they're being a little successful there.
Yeah, and they look a lot healthier. Or
whatever.
Okay, and they will come. What would you say to someone who?
What I would say, so I mean, the question kind of is, if you don't have kind of this warm market to work with, you know, people that you really know, which I challenge that, but let's go with that for now. If you didn't have this warm market, how do you hold a class? Like, what would you do? What you need to do, and the reason they call it network marketing is you need to expand your network a bit. So if that means that my wife at home raising our children, and all she sees is, you know, Candyland and, you know, kids stuff, how's she gonna start a business that way, right? Well, maybe she joins a mommy's group where, you know, you let the kids go play at the playground and the moms kind of chat a bit, expanding her network. Okay, you know, maybe you join I don't know what they call them over here, but we have kind of business networking groups where all different types of businesses kind of come together and say, oh, what do you do? Well, I do this. What do you do? That. I do that. And you kind of get these contacts of different networks. You have to build your network. Now, most of us, I would probably say all of us, but I'll give benefit of the doubt. Most of us have a warm network that we already know. They're our friends. They're people we work with. You know, it's people that we've kind of already have this trust with them. Now, if we'll do that in a way that's not, you know, kind of overpowering or overbearing, then we in no way harm that network. You know, we can culture that network. You know, I was talking to Dan a little bit earlier. There was somebody in our warm network that we looked and we thought, oh my goodness, this gal would be, she would be so good at this business. What do we do? You know, I don't want to just walk right up to her and say, you know, hey, Rochelle, you know, you'd really do great at doTERRA. You know, I know you don't even know what oils are, but you know, you got to come join me. Yeah, like that wasn't going to work. So what did we do? We kind of started fostering that relationship. Got to know her better. Invite her over. Hey, bring your kids over. Let's have a barbecue. Let's get to know her better. She got to know us better, and eventually, it was very natural that it's like, hey, yeah, this is what we're doing. Like, you want to join with us? Oh yeah, that sounds great. Okay? But had it come to that point and she said, no, you know, I'm really just not interested, like, big deal, right? Like, we're still going to be friends. We're still going to foster that relationship, you know, but what happens when you start scaring people away is when you spend relationship capital that you don't have. You know, you go in the hole. You go negative. Okay? And what I mean by that is you haven't built that relationship, or you don't have enough trust with that person, and you're inviting them to do something that they're not really open to do. And so that's when it kind of gets like, oh, that was kind of weird. Like, where'd that come from? You know, maybe it's somebody you knew 10 years ago at uni, and you phone them up, and you're like, hey, how's it going? I know I haven't talked to you in 10 years. Have I got the opportunity for you? You know, like, what are they going to say? Oh, well, that was weird. Yeah, I'm kind of busy. You know what I mean? But if you choose not to do it that way, and you phone your friend up and you say, hey, how's it been? You know, what are you doing? I'd love to catch up with you. Yeah, it's great to talk. And you phone them up the next day. You know what I mean? You kind of build this relationship back, and then once that relationship's good, probably they're going to ask you, hey, what are you doing? Oh yeah, I do this thing with essential oils, it's doTERRA. Stop. And you kind of kick it back to them, like, you know, what are you doing, you know? And you just keep it kind of this natural thing. We have the temptation to, as soon as they open the door, to just barge in, you know. So what are you doing? Oh yeah, well I do this doTERRA thing. You're like, oh, you should come to a class, you know, and you got to start using these, you know, we just kind of pounce. Because we're excited about it, right? And we want to share it, but we need to kind of take the social cues and, you know, build the relationship up to the point where it's natural, it feels good. Okay? Now with somebody, you know, if you're at a booth or something, you're doing an expo, clearly you don't have the time to, you know, chat with them 3 or 4 times before you're going to bring up anything about doTERRA, right? In that situation, and they're kind of expecting it, they're at a fair where there's plenty of tables where everybody's going to tell them about the company. You know, that's maybe a little bit different, right? But if it's my warm market, if it's my family, my friends, yeah, I'm going to watch out for that. You know, I'm going to check the social cues. If I feel like, you know, my brother doesn't really want to come to class, he's not seeming very interested, hey, I'm going to drop it right there. That's great. Maybe I'll check back a little later or drop a little hint here or there about it. If he bites, you know, maybe I'll give a little bit more. If he doesn't, then okay, you know, he's still not ready. And you just kind of, you work it in a way that it's not awkward, okay? Yeah, I mean, you just make that decision. Like, I don't want to be that person, and then don't be that person. You know, does that kind of help a little bit with?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, too right. Of course
Yeah.
it is, yeah.
So, I mean, I kind of put this up. Maybe it's too simplistic. You know, how do you get started? But implied in all of this is you've got this support group. You know, you tell Jonathan, hey, I want to schedule your first class. Well, guess what? Jonathan's going to say, hey, you know, well, what I found is really effective in inviting people is, you know, hey, send them an email, you know, the day before, send them a text the day of, hey, I'm real excited to see you, you know, whatever, right? You know, Jonathan's going to be there along with you and help you out with whatever roadblock you're going to come up to. Kind of the point I'm making is, if you really want to do this, like, take some action, like just do something. Okay, because sitting there trying to figure it all out in your head, which I'm an engineer, so that's my tendency. I don't do anything until I've got it all figured out, everything measured, and it fits just perfect. If you do that, you'll just never get started. So schedule your first class, get it on the calendar. You know, call Jonathan and say, hey, ready to go. I'm really nervous. I don't know what to do. And he say, oh, no worries. I'm going to teach your first class for you. You know, you just kind of sit there and kind of watch what I'm doing, and I'll teach you how to do this.
I've got a friend that we've not really spoken to for about 15 years, and yes, I would love it if him and his wife came into doTERRA and worked with me, but I sincerely want to get our friendship back, and so over the last few months, I'm not doing this to engineer a situation, because I honestly feel that if he's not interested in doTERRA, that's fine. I just want to have that friendship back. And so do you know what? For me, doTERRA, I'm finding, is a great way for me to actually kick myself up the backside, to actually rekindle some of those friendships. And even if they're not interested, I would just love to get in contact with them. I've been speaking to him and his wife, and they are actually interested in doing this. But even if they weren't, I'm just happy to be in touch.
Yeah,
and
fantastic.
if it wasn't for this, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm going to go and work with them. We're in Sweden, so I can go skiing as well.
Nice.
Hey.
Awesome. Hey, that's great. I think we need to schedule a trip to kind of go, you know, get started. They allow you to snowboard, right?
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's exactly right. That's good.
I think a lot of it's just about living it, isn't it?
Yeah.
You like doTERRA because it helps you and your family, and so you just want to help other people with it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if your motives are about money, it's not going to work out too well for you.
Because
people, people sense that. But if your motives are about helping and serving and, you know, helping people come up with solutions to their challenges, and people eat that up. So that's good.
Unless you're my dad.
I'm sorry?
Unless you're my dad, he's just...
doesn't want anybody to help him.
Yeah.
My dad didn't. My dad's on loads of heart medication, and he's, you know, he just wants to do what the doctor says.
Yeah.
But he's really softened recently. It's taken some time, but I gave him a diffusion, some orange at Christmas. But he says that his blood pressure tablets, it really annoys him because he gets itchy legs. So I just showed him in the book how ylang ylang can reduce blood pressure, and I just said, look, go to your doctor and just say, look, I'd love to come off this pill, my son's doing this says this, look, about reducing blood pressure. Can we do a test? Can we do,
Yeah.
you know, and I'll come in and have my blood pressure tested every day for like 2 or 3 weeks, just so I know, and the
Yeah,
doctor's
you're being
happy.
safe.
Just do it
Yeah.
together.
It's a good idea, that.
Mhm.
And lots of doctors, in my experience, are happy to work with that. Yeah.
Well, they are because
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it helps to saves their money, doesn't it?
Eventually they'll stop coming back in.
Get a hug. I get a hug. This is the second meeting. Nice to meet you.
Hey, good to
Yeah,
see you.
yeah, that's right. Next time you get a hug too.
Hey, good to see you.
Appreciate you guys coming.
I don't mind giving you a banana.
So, where's the accent from?
Everywhere.
Yeah. Really, if you guys move around.
I love it. I did the old.
Okay.
Oh
my goodness.
Well, brain.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. And that's how Mother Earth
How
works.
exciting.
It's not everywhere, but
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. You've covered quite a bit of the globe there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. So, how'd you like it? Just love the culture?
Oh, I'd still be
Or was it quite a
I actually like
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Didn't know anything about it before
I didn't really either.
I was sat
Interesting.
Yeah, it's so it is so different from U.S. and England. Yeah, have different accents and stuff, but largely it's kind of the same. You know, there's slight differences here and there, but yeah, you go to somewhere in Asia and it's like, whoa, this is a different world.
So yeah, when I came back and I went to uni in Cardiff, and then part of my study as well.
Oh, okay.
So she came out with
What did you study?
business management, Japanese.
Okay. Kind of international business stuff. Yeah,
Or your eyes just
that's pretty exciting. So what are you working on?
At the moment, I'm doing enterprise.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
At the moment, so I really like the job. I hate the hours. Balance.
yeah.
In Kansas.
Get that.
Okay.
Just traveling a bit, came back for a bit, tried to get a job like here, but nothing was suitable. So found same company in Kansas, it's a bit closer.
Yeah.
Working away
New Zealand's like
but
Him wrong.
So how are you guys doing?
Alright.
Yeah.
Ben,
You're from Yates, is that
Ben,
right?
yeah.
she's
Ben, which one?
before you asked
Oh,
me,
no, it's children.
yeah, you were just saying that she moved around
Okay.
a bit,
Oh, so
but
soon then.
I don't know.
It's a lot of people. Yeah.
Must have been so important.
A lot of things,
Yeah, no worries.
it is it's like the mix of most modern stuff.
Right? Yeah, they have high technology.
You can be walking down the street next to a massive skyscraper, and then you pass two more buildings, and then there's a
Oh, they've been around more often.
the kids go to family stuff, family
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That's totally true.
and
Yeah, they're just very big on tradition,
it's the same
right?
with like the dress, how people dress in the street.
Got kind of the punk with all the crazy
Oh,
hair.
yeah, the crazy wild teenagers dressing all business events, and then you can have like some
Just genuinely. And that's why that's
walking down the street
it's so
with
nice because the products do really work and they change people's lives.
Stay there for years and years.
That
and then
rings true.
ended.
I bet that was a good time there.
Or ended.
Someday I'll go back. I've already been to it, yeah, that's on my list.
So this is yeah, pop-up.
That's
So you can
actually
say,
where we
if you
can
go to the
introduce
doTERRA blog,
In
they've got
Japan.
blogs on this as well.
Oh,
So
how funny.
this particular book is nothing to do with health.
We went to the English
It's all
speaking
to do with DIY stuff that you can make in the home.
moved there to start up doTERRA.
Really? Who was it?
I love
What was the guy's name in Japan with doTERRA? Kimball. But his sponsor.
I felt
Yeah,
Truman.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
love this country after that.
She sponsored
Yeah.
Rhiannon.
No, I think it's good.
So then we knew about it for ages, but when we moved back and I was still in uni and she was looking after the kids, like we tried to start it as a business.
Well, I got home
A little
and
bit.
I was a bit scared about the whole
And we can all
class
help.
thing,
Yeah.
and
Like with the
and I just
internal
thought, I can't
support
do this,
here,
I can't
yeah.
do this.
You might
Yeah,
come
and I
up
didn't
against
want to
this quite a few
drag her all
times.
the way
I'm
over.
sure.
She was desperate.
I'm completely
Oh, really?
She
to
really
explain
wanted an
that to
excuse
me.
to come back.
I wasn't used to it,
Yeah, she
So
did.
Oh, did she?
you get there.
Yeah,
and we're not forcing it down people's throats.
Yeah, so I
The-
feel really bad.
take it internally. We're saying that do your
Matter.
research.
She's quite
I
she's
do.
getting near
Everyone else does. When you're ready, you can.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what people want. She's
No, and that's
Yeah.
fine. Like I say, we're not trying to force it down the throats. They can just do it aromantically
Yeah. He's got a
until they've
PhD
done
in
more
Taiwan.
study and then they
Yeah.
finally.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
He
we
actually
went
gave
out
me
there.
his lavender because that's
That's what money's for, isn't it?
Oh, that's untrue.
But yeah, so there's
Oh,
loads of
really?
resources out there.
To the
Even if
point
you
where
did
you're
set up a blog,
Yeah.
for example, you might decide to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
You
you
can
have
feel
to
fine.
It's like, this is my lavender.
Yeah,
Take
you
care.
need this more than I do.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love Boyd and Gina, the whole family.
Yeah.
They have a long history in essential oils.
Yeah, they're
Way
not
back,
as,
yeah,
yeah.
high in living.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was,
It's okay. As
yeah,
long
pretty
as
close
it's-
up.
Cut out this diet.
At the very beginning. Yeah, their mother is way high up in young liver.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
she's
one
still
got
Still there,
in that nice
why would she leave?
sometimes,
She's
like
making
I caught the
a
flu,
massive
and
impact.
I still was still on
away from
guard.
What about protein?
But also because all of
Do
them
you know what?
are on
Some
the
things
terrace.
I do actually feel
But she just
that
can't leave it, you know.
the virus passed me by because of her. I do honestly
Yeah.
feel that.
Yeah.
There are some times I've had viruses,
Yeah.
but every single time
Did she
I
use
fought it off a
doTERRA?
lot
I
more
think she
quickly
probably
than I would have done.
I don't know for sure, but I can't imagine, you know, all of her children
Or
when she
the
does it.
symptoms that I struggled
Not on
with
that diet.
weren't as bad.
Cool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and those
it's a small
experiences,
world, yeah.
they will build up. You'll have experience after experience, so that when you're sharing with people,
Yeah, that's these,
you can.
red
I mean,
hair.
to begin with, you can share other people's
Yeah,
experiences.
use
I quite like
ginger,
my first step. I quite like to just
Share
breathe.
some of
Yeah,
Rhiannon.
3-degree burns from
Mine.
the sun.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, redheads kind of do
So I
get
buy
that
stuff
little
for
worse.
me and I buy stuff for my mum.
Whoa.
Yeah, 3 degrees,
Well,
wow.
inside my mum.
So you're from Arizona?
Yeah.
Which part?
Do you know Arizona?
Not really, but my
So
MTC
Mesa,
Children's favorite. My sister.
it's pretty high
my
morbid
MTC
population.
companion I think was from there.
Yeah, I imagine.
Do you remember him?
Uh-huh, yeah. I'm related to some Haymores, but I don't know
Yeah.
Brent.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah, it's gotta be the same
We
family.
look similar as well.
Oh,
Might be.
How do you
he's got 2 eyes, he had 2 eyes.
Skull, like, really, what I
No,
thought
yeah,
would be.
I don't know a Brent.
They don't know.
I have
They just know in that
one
particular
of my
city,
aunts
they
is a
control
Haymore,
the
she's married into the Haymore family.
Oh, exactly.
So-
But
And
they,
then
they
So it's not, you know,
who
like
she
you
was,
want,
it
but
was
Yeah.
through marriage,
to support
I'm related
those
to
things.
Haymores.